We have to call off work for the weekend to go play these tournaments, and sometimes they're every weekend. We're like calling off work every weekend. I don't know how some of those guys did it, but yeah, Rez Ball.
Rez Ball. Welcome back, y'all. We're here for another episode of Response, #Response Wednesday. And I do that all the time because I'm not sure if hashtag is a thing.
I think it is. Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know if like this is a thing, but I know hashtag is a thing. The Rez Ball series, as part of the Response Roundtable, is sponsored by the Navi Foundation.
The Navi Foundation hosts the largest all-Native American basketball invitational in the world and the Navi Educational Youth Summit.
Navi Foundation hosts over 1,300 Indigenous youth from 300 different communities all around the world, including Canada, New Zealand, Samoa, and the US.
The Navi Invitational will be held next year, 2021, July 11th through the 17th in Phoenix, Arizona.
For more information, visit our website at www.navifoundation.org.
What does Rez Ball mean to you?
I think when I think in terms of Rez Ball, I think it's a way of life for natives. It's kind of what we did growing up. For me, it was a way off the reservation and a way to college. And I think of like up-tempo basketball because in my coaching mindset, you know what I mean? It just goes directly to coaching. Excitement, fun, just energy, and it's just kind of what we do.
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't play much basketball. Just my town and the way I was kind of brought up, we were always kind of isolated within ourselves. I traveled down south a lot more for baseball growing up, so I never really got into that basketball aspect of life or even like cultural practices. I was never really, I didn't know what it meant to be Native American growing up really. I'd go to a few California Indian Day parades and whatnot, but like besides that, I didn't know nothing really until I got into high school and I started playing more basketball. And then the first bit of Rez Ball, I guess you'd say, I got put into were open gyms up in Bishop, California, where, they had more people to play, more talent than I would say my town had. Some of the first times I actually started seeing more people that were like me, that were Native American, was at Navi when I got invited over there to play. Yeah, so that was really what brought me into Rez Ball and kind of seeing like that it's more than just a sport for us. Like it's kind of like that way of life where everyone was a part of it. Everyone was wanting to tell their story.
For me, every time I heard Rez Ball, I always thought Warrior because my mom, like I started playing basketball in high school and that's when I was in California. So I didn't get to like, play with my cousins and stuff because most of my life I was in half of my life I was in California. And when I started playing, she's just like, "Come on, Sophia, play some Rez Ball." And like she would always like say how like you guys would always go so hard and you're so tough and like so like in my mentality, like that's where my aggression comes from. I think of that, and like I think she always says like I tried warrior. So like whenever someone comes out, I'm like, "I got this," I'm getting this rebound, I'm snatch this out of the air right now. But so that's what I think of when I hear Rez Ball, just like competition, and giving it your all on the court and off the court.
Good, huh?
Yeah. I went to school at Montana State and I didn't play basketball, I just did intramurals. And Montana has like 8 tribes, so there's a large Native community at Montana State in Bozeman. So when I go play pickup, there would always be like a large group of Native boys that would come and play basketball, and they were the only ones that didn't care that I was a girl, and the other ones would be like a little hesitant. But that was like my first taste of like what Rez Ball was, because they were more free, like they were more fun. It was nice because like I hated being like, oh, she's a girl, but they didn't care, and I was able to like talk to them more and ask them questions, and so I got a little taste of what Rez Ball was like when I was at Montana State. And now I'm able to like talk to my teammates. There's like 6 of us that are native, and so.
Like, and when you think of Rez Ball, there are no rules, right? There's no age limit because your auntie could be playing with you and she could be like 45, 50, right? And then the baby could be playing too. So it's like you got a 9-year-old and like a 45-year-old, and we're all playing together, and nobody cares because everybody just wants to win. And you know, you're gonna shoot it when you're open, and if you miss it, God, they're gonna get mad at you. And so you just learn to play. Like, it's survival, right? When you're out there on the res playing.
They don't go into one for girl, so.
Right? I don't even remember calling fouls ever. I don't think there were fouls on the res. Is there fouls? We never had a foul. It's just like you're gonna fight for it, and whoever comes up with it, it's your ball.
Rez Ball, it seems to, like everything else, every style of play is kind of evolving since when I was growing up. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just a style of play. I think it really is a way of life. It's the ultimate connector. I think Rez Ball is a place where kids can dream a little bit and can express themselves and be creative, you know. But it definitely is it's a life giver, really, and it definitely is a pillar in our community. You know, we have our strong cultural component, but Rez Ball is just its own component, and it fits right into the culture.
I see a lot of different levels in Rez Ball for me, because I technically didn't play in the Rez Ball tournament until I graduated college. So when I came on the scene, my first tournament was Big Ballers in Florida, and that was my introduction to Rez Ball. To talk about the style of the game, what a lot of people outside of the reservation don't know is that it's similar. Even though it's faster, they still have the same talent as somebody outside the reservation.
You know, basketball is a lot more, you know, in a sense of, again, it's a teaching tool, things like that, right? But it's competition, it's competing, you know, there's math to it, it's a science, it's an art form, right? Like it is a lot of that mix. So, you know, it's competing, you know, mind, body, and soul, right? And it's kind of making all that connected, and that's what's the beauty of the game. Your creativity, you know, you could play freely, things like that. Like getting ready for, you know, a res tournament, right? Like you got to get in shape. Like there's you know, you got to work. But you know, for me, you know, like I said, like both my mom and dad played in the tournaments, you know, so I come from basketball. It's in my blood. Both my parents played. I played nothing else, you know, and so I knew it was going to be basketball.
When I got first introduced to the circuit, Rez Ball, it was new to me because I just got back from overseas playing ball and ran into these a group of guys, Navajo guys, and they had their own squad. So I was like, you want to play in this tournament? And I was like, all right, what kind of tournament is this? You know, it's a Native American basketball tournament. I was like, all right, well, shoot, I'll play. What the heck? And me coming from overseas, I was already ready, and you know, it was a different world to me from what I was used to. You know, for the past, you know, 10 years before that, you know, I was like traveling the world playing ball and playing a different type of ball, but then playing in these res tournaments, it was, you know, it was a different world. And not knowing the level of talent out there that I was playing against, I was like, well, shoot, how come some of these guys aren't taking it to the next level? Well, it's because of exposure. You know, that's what I've learned playing in these tournaments.
Rez Ball, for me, Rez Ball means everything to me because it was just my way to get out of my comfort zone first, because my family and we grew up in Okinawa, Japan, but when we came to Arizona, I never realized how big basketball was. In Japan, it wasn't that big, and then when we came to Arizona, all I wanted to do was like transfer my school to Kayenta to go to Monument Valley.
Yeah.
Because I watched one of the state playoff games, and I realized that everybody drives 5-7 hours just to come down just to watch basketball, and I've never seen so many people like who actually wanted to watch basketball. But I think that it's more than just watching basketball. I think it's more of coming together and just having a good time and forgetting all of our like problems or struggles that we're dealing with at the time, and just to play basketball.
For the Navi Foundation, with our tournament, for years, yes, we've seen like Rez Ball, the run and gun, everything, but now I feel like we're trying to transition our kids into being more structured, because like you said, we have college recruiters at our tournament, and so a lot of them are looking for that structure, making sure these kids that they can play at this level. So that's one thing I think it's really hard for kids to, I guess, I don't know what the word is, but
I mean, you're adapting a whole new way of how they did things.
Yeah, way of functioning. Yeah. So I think that's one of the tough things about working in the environment I work in, like with the kids and all. Right now, we started a junior Navi camp a few years ago, and it's for incoming 9th graders. So we actually partner with the Phoenix Suns, Phoenix Mercury junior Navi camps, and they come out and they do our camp for 2 days, 3 days. And so the whole point of that is to get the kids, skills, develop skills.
But that's what do you call it? What do you call that? That paradox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a paradox.
Coaching wise, I teach a structured system, but I also teach and tell my girls to play out of the system. You know what you can play in the system, like you're not a robot. And that's how I felt in college. Like I wasn't as successful, I don't believe, because I felt like a robot. Because when we went and we did open gyms and stuff, I mean, they were great, right? You're killing people in open gyms, but then you get there in front of the coach and they're like, well, you have to move here at this time and you have to move there at that time.
And our kids I want them to learn both. So we'll have open gyms as they just go play. The ball will go through the hoop, you catch it and 1 foot out of bounds and you were just like launching that, catching it, laying it in. But once we get into coaching, I try to make sure that they can be free, be creative. The number 1 play in the state last year was the top 2 plays were from one of my players who was just, throwing these crazy passes, no look, drop pass, and then one behind his head, and a lot of flair that I allow them to have. But at the same time, I want them to have that structure. So one of our rules is no 3-point shots after half court or off the dribble. So we want a piece of the paint. And I'm like, if you're open to give you that space, yeah, but let's get down there and work it a little bit, get the ball in the paint, see what we got there first.
The only tweak a tribal member would have to do is to, as far as Rez Ball, is that run and gun style. If you open, you're going to shoot it. But a lot of college programs don't want that. If you're not the best shooter, you don't get the green light to just shoot every time you're open. And I learned that in college as well. And then after, everybody was shooting everything, and I said, "Oh wow, everybody's just shooting everything." I'm like, "Man, I'm down here. I got somebody 6 inches shorter than me in the hole." I'm like, "Hey, give me the ball," and they like, "No, they shoot it." Boom. I was like, "Oh," I used to get upset because I used to be like, "Man, okay," but then they was like, "Oh, this is Rez Ball. We just run and gun." I'm like, "Okay, so that means I got to get in better shape."
One of the funniest times I ever heard even the term Rez Ball being mentioned, I was running the clinic out at Navi, and this little girl that was a part of the junior Navi clinic she was going everywhere. She was shooting threes, she'd run the other way, run out of bounds. I'm like, "What are you doing? We got to play basketball." She's like, "Not on my res, we don't." I'm like, "All right, whatever, I get it, okay, but we got to play this here." And she's like, "All right, whatever you say." But that was where I saw even these people, even the younger generation that's coming up under us, I'm young still, but just how much they're all getting into the sport, how much they're all seeing that aspect of who we are and what this is to them is incredible to me.
It always comes down to the training. For me, growing up in Los Angeles, you know, I grew up with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and you know, went against these guys all the time, you know. And it was like, okay, that competition was there, the training was there. It was just like, that's kind of where it was at, right? And so now going back, it's like, okay, these times when I went to high school, the times when I, you know, was able to play in the tournaments, travel, you know, go to, I started to film a little more. So I got invited to go, you know, come to like other like youth tournaments and stuff like that and film. And so it was like, oh man, like the potential's there, you know, is there, right? The path is there. It's just like, oh man, like they need that kind of like that little bit of you know, training in a sense of just getting, you know, that more training the mind, right? Like more training the you know, the meaning of the like, what are you doing it for? Like, you know, always keeping that a constant.
You know, if you really truly want it, you can do it, but you can't, you know, you can't get what you want if you don't put the work in. And I tell them straight up, and I never sugarcoat anything with them, because you know, my dad never sugarcoated anything for me, and he always told me, you know, if you want it, you have to work for it. Simple as that, you know.
Yeah.
But I think for our people, we have to work twice as hard to get to wherever we want to be.
True.
It's not just from point A to point B. It's, you know, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And no matter what, you know, we are strong. Like our people, we are strong people. We're strong minded. We have a strong heart. We have strong bodies. Like everything about our people, we are strong. So I think that we can do anything that we want to do.